Deep in the Florida Everglades, a controversial new detention center has emerged. Alligator Alcatraz. Built rapidly in mid-2025 at the remote Dade Collier Airport, its stark white tents and chain-link fences stand in sharp contrast to the surrounding wetlands. Designed to hold up to 500 detainees with plans for expansion to 3,000, the facility supports an aggressive federal immigration enforcement strategy. Its isolated location keeps it far from public view, and the nickname Alligator Alcatraz evokes both its harshness and the dangerous swamps around it. The site's utilitarian tents, rows of bunk beds, and caged sleeping areas create a confining environment, all brightly lit and fenced in the heart of a sensitive ecosystem. President Trump toured the site in July 2025, touting it as a model for future detention centers and a central hub for immigration enforcement in the Southeast. But the rapid build-out and plans for expansion quickly sparked fierce legal and environmental opposition. Expansion plans for Alligator Alcatraz faced immediate resistance from environmental groups and the Miccosukee tribe, who filed a lawsuit to halt construction. They argued the facility threatened the Everglades' fragile ecosystem, undermining decades of restoration efforts and risking pollution, habitat loss, and harm to protected species. For the Miccosukee tribe, the fight was also about protecting their ancestral homeland and cultural heritage, which the government had failed to respect or consult. The lawsuit claimed the government rushed the project without required environmental reviews, violating federal laws like the National Environmental Policy Act. Plaintiffs asserted that state and federal officials ignored legal obligations in their haste, setting a dangerous precedent for bypassing environmental protections. The coalition demanded a halt to expansion and accountability for these violations. Their case brought together environmental, legal, and human rights concerns, making Alligator Alcatraz a flashpoint for national debate. The legal battle was just beginning. On August 21, 2025, U.S. District Judge Kathleen Williams issued a preliminary injunction, blocking further expansion of Alligator Alcatraz. The ruling was a major victory for environmentalists and the Miccosukee tribe, freezing the project and ordering a reduction in detainees within 60 days. Judge Williams found the facility was a joint state-federal project, making it subject to federal environmental laws. She criticized officials for failing to consider alternative sites and for rushing construction in one of America's most sensitive ecosystems. The injunction prohibited new detainees and required removal of temporary infrastructure once the population dropped. Modifications for safety or environmental reasons were allowed, but the message was clear: expediency could not override legal and environmental responsibilities. The decision set a precedent for how such projects must be handled. The future of Alligator Alcatraz was now uncertain. Inside Alligator Alcatraz, detainees described grim conditions, poor food quality, including reports of worms, and chronic sanitation failures. Plumbing issues led to unsanitary, hazardous living spaces, while insects and the sweltering Florida heat made life inside unbearable. Air conditioning frequently failed, and access to showers and hygiene was limited. Medical care was inadequate, with some detainees unable to get needed medications. Communication with the outside world was severely restricted, with no in-person legal visits allowed. These accounts fueled opposition, adding a powerful human rights dimension to the legal and environmental fight. The reality inside the camp became impossible to ignore. The court's injunction drew swift backlash from Florida officials, who vowed to appeal and accused the judiciary of overreach. Governor DeSantis and President Trump framed the ruling as a political obstacle to their immigration agenda, promising to fight on. The legal battle moved to the appellate courts, with the facility's future hanging in the balance. For now, expansion is halted and the population must be reduced, as the case becomes a national test of immigration policy versus environmental law. The outcome will set a precedent for whether governments can bypass environmental protections for political priorities. It also highlights the rights of indigenous tribes and the importance of humane treatment for detainees. As the fight continues, Alligator Alcatraz stands at the crossroads of law, environment, and human rights. Its fate will shape the nation's approach to these critical issues.